Elysium has been downloaded over 100 million times. It doubles, sometimes triples the frame rate in Minecraft without changing how the game looks at all. But Minecraft is a finished, compiled game. You can't change how it is working from the inside. And yet Elysium reaches inside and rewrites how Minecraft draws the world entirely. So how is that even possible? And in Galaxia, a mod we are building, every dimension has its own sky, gravity and air resistance, its own celestial bodies with its own parameters. Minecraft can't do that. All of this is possible by using a technique called mixins, which I'll explain in this video, so subscribe. To understand what mixins are, you first need to understand something about the language Minecraft is written in. Imagine that Minecraft's code is a book. Mojang wrote the manuscript, which is the source code, and sent it to a printing house. The printing house translates the manuscript into the instructions for a printer, which is called bytecode. It's no longer a human-readable text, but it's not a finished book either. Most programming languages translate code directly into machine instructions, commands that the processor understands directly, but those instructions are written for a specific combination of hardware and operating system. Code compiled for Windows won't run on Linux even on identical hardware. That's why Java took a different path and inserted something in between. Java was created in the early 90s by a team at Sun Microsystems around the specific idea: write once, run anywhere. At the time, every platform required its own compilation. When you write for Windows, it won't run on Mac. If you write for Linux, it won't run on Windows. Sun wanted to get rid of that. Bytecode was the solution. It's an intermediate layer between the code and the hardware. You compile your code once into bytecode, and then every platform figures out how to run it through its own JVM, the Java Virtual Machine. In our book world, it's a universal language for printers. Windows is one printer, Linux is another, with a different hardware and different instructions. But bytecode is the same for all of them. Any machine with a JVM installed knows how to read it and translate it for its own. They were solving a compatibility problem. They didn't think that 30 years later this architecture will open a door into a closed game. The thing is, bytecode is a standardized format. It has its own grammar and rules. And because bytecode follows strict rules, programs can manipulate it just like they manipulate any other structured data. JVM is built around bytecode to understand it completely, which means bytecode can only be read, but also changed by applying exact same rules. Mojang sends Minecraft to you already in bytecode. You don't have the manuscript, just the instructions for the printer. And there is another important detail. The printer doesn't receive the whole book at once. Minecraft isn't one giant block of code, it's divided into thousands of separate code files called classes, or in our book analogy, chapters. When the JVM needs a chapter, it loads only that chapter's printing instructions and prepares it for printing. This happens while the class is being loaded, right before Minecraft actually starts using it. In this exact moment you can secretly change the bytecode into the one you need to print the text that you want. The printer gets the modified version and Minecraft doesn't know that. For it, it's just a regular book. That's what mixins do. But to understand where they came from, you need to understand what came before them. Minecraft Forge appeared as an answer to chaos. When modding first started, every mod just grabbed the game files it needed, changed it and put it back. There was no coordination or rules. If two mods want to change the same page, one loads, the other disappears. Want to install 5 mods, that's 5 people tearing one page out of the book and inserting their own one by one. And because they overwrite each other, the only one left would be the one that was latest to load. Forge created a different model. Instead of every mod reaching directly into the game's files, Forge stood in the middle. It modified the necessary classes once at load time and added special points to them called hooks. Places where the game would pause for a moment and ask, is there anyone who wants to write something right now? Imagine that instead of a ready book you get a notebook where some pages have fields that anyone can write in. A player breaks a block, it's a hook. Entity takes damage, hook. Craft completes, also a hook. A mod subscribes to the moment it needs, and when the game reaches it, it calls all subscribers in order. First mod wrote its piece, second mod wrote its piece, and the game continues. Now there weren't any overwritten pages anymore. This was a revolution. Massive mod packs became possible, dozens of mods running simultaneously, not interfering with each other. What used to be a lottery became something that is possible to control. But this model has a fun dimensional ceiling. A hook only exists where Forge developers put one. They looked at the game, found important moments, and manually added entry points. It's an enormous work that could never be fully completed. Imagine that instead of having fields everywhere, you only had them in important places. And if you wanted to change something that didn't have the fields, you had to use the old method. If you needed to change game behavior somewhere Forge hadn't placed a hook, you hit a wall, just because nobody thought that you would even need it. Forge gave you access to what someone else decided to make accessible, everything else was closed. That's exactly the wall Sponge team ran into. At the time, server-side Minecraft ran on one project, CraftBucket. Thousands of servers, hundreds of thousands of plugins, the entire infrastructure of multiplayer Minecraft ran on it. It was the foundation of every single Minecraft server. And in September 2014, that foundation collapsed overnight. One of CraftBucket's co-developers, a person known as Wallfisch, had been contributing to the project since 2012. Over 20,000 lines of code, years of work on what he thought was a community project built by volunteers for everyone. What almost nobody knew was that 2 years earlier Mojang had quietly bought Bucket. They haven't announced it and haven't told the contributors. What they did is just hire 4 of the co-developers, including Dinnerbone, and as the part of that deal, took the ownership of the whole project. Everyone else kept contributing for free without knowing they were now working for a company that has just sold itself for Microsoft for over $2.5 billion. When that came out in August 2014, Wallfisch looked at his situation differently. His code was licensed under JPL, a license with one main rule: if you use JPL code in your project, the whole project has to be open too. CraftBucket violated that rule. It mixed open code with Mojang's closed server code that Mojang never released and never planned to. By the terms of the license, his contribution was being used illegally. So he filed a takedown request, and he made the condition clear: open the server code and he would drop it. Mojang refused, so the takedown stood. Because of that, downloads and source code disappeared. Thousands of servers were left on CraftBucket version that nobody could ever update again. But to build a platform that works on top of a closed game, they needed a tool for that. Forge gave hooks where Forge had pre-placed them. They needed to change the game behavior everywhere, deeply without conflicts. A developer named Murphy wrote the solution. He called it mixin. The idea was to stop waiting for the game to call you through an event, and instead catch the right piece of bytecode right at the printing house, before JVM had printed it, and quietly write your own text instead, so that when the game finally opens that page, it sees exactly what you wanted, and the game never knows it was looking ever different. But building a platform on top of a closed game isn't just a technical problem. CraftBucket collapsed not because of bad code, but because of how it was built legally. Sponge needed to get that right too, and there is something important that is easy to miss. Every time you launch Minecraft, in the bottom right corner of the menu it says Copyright Mojang AB, do not distribute. It sits right on the screen on every launch. It's marking a boundary that you mustn't cross. CraftBucket crossed exactly that line. It included compiled Mojang code in its distribution, literally took someone else's property, packaged it with its own code and handed it out to everyone. So it was distributing the code they weren't allowed to. And when Wallfisch pressed the button, the law was on his side. Mixins are structured differently. Mojang wrote in the EULA that mods are fine as long as they don't contain major part of their code. A mixin doesn't contain any of Mojang's code. It works with bytecode that's already on your PC that is purchased, downloaded, sitting on your folder. It's just an instruction that when you load this class, you'll modify it like this. The original stays untouched. What gets changed is your local copy at launch only on your device. The difference between I printed your book and handed it out to everyone and I made notes in my own copy. One of these is a violation, the other isn't. That's what allowed Sponge team to build what CraftBucket couldn't, a platform that couldn't be torn down with a single letter. And it's one of the reasons mixins became the foundation of modern Minecraft modding. But how exactly does a mixin know where to step in? When you write a mixin, you don't just say change this method. You say something far more precise. Find this method and inside it at this exact moment step in here. That could be the very start of a method, could be the moment before a specific line. This is practically code surgery. You're not replacing the whole page, you are inserting one word between the two existing ones. And this solves the conflict problem that killed the old way of modding. When two mods want to do something in the same place of code, in most cases there is no problem. First one steps at its own spot, second one steps at its own spot. As long as they are not targeting the exact same code, both would exist. And the pages don't get replaced by each other, like they did in the old way. But this precision has a cost. To say step right in here, you have to know exactly where that part of the bytecode of that method looks like in this specific version of the game. Because the mixin works not with the source code but with bytecode. And bytecode is a sequence of specific instructions in the specific order. That's why Forge still exists alongside mixins. With Forge, modding changes the game, Forge adapts its events. Slower, works not everywhere, but far more stable. Mixins can get to everything, but they are way more fragile. But there is a problem hidden inside all of this. To tell the printer where to insert your text, you first have to know where that text belongs. And Minecraft only gives you the printing instructions. Imagine being handed thousands of pages with technical notes from printing house and being told, find the exact place where this exact text is printed, with no table of content, no chapter titles, no comments from the author explaining what anything means. Purely instructions, and reading someone else's code is a surprising amount of mod developing. Following clues, narrowing possibilities, looking for the part of the code that controls the specific thing you need. And only when you found that single point you can finally tell a mixin where to step in. When I wrote the first mixin that worked, something changed. But it wasn't in the code, it was right in my head. Before, everything started with one simple question. Can I do this within what Minecraft allows me? Is there an event? Is there a hook? Did Forge think anything about this exact thing? Did Forge think about this exact case? Sometimes yes, but sometimes no, and then the idea just died because you have hit the wall. After, the question disappeared, it stopped being relevant. Now the question sounded, how exactly will I do this? Everyone has something like this in their own field. The moment when a tool you got didn't just close one problem, but removed an entire class of questions that you could now accept as given. For me, that was mixins. Now a concrete example. In Galaxia, every dimension, a planet, a moon or a satellite, has its own sky, its own celestial bodies, its own orbits, phases. From the moon you can simultaneously not only see the sun and the moon, and yes, you can see the moon from the moon, we'll change it later. But you can also see these 4 conveniently placed planets that we use to test how the mixin is working. Minecraft can't do that. It has only one sun and only one moon that are hard-coded. There is no official way to replace them without using a mixin. The first thing the mixin does, it finds exactly the moment when the game reaches for the sun's texture. Not the hold method or the hold class, but the specific moment inside the method. And it swaps the texture for transparent 1 by 1 pixel. Vanilla still keeps drawing its sun, it's just invisible now. The game doesn't know that anything happened. Simultaneously, at this exact moment, a second mixin steps in and draws our bodies, as many as we want with any orbits, any textures and any orbital speed. But there is more. Before drawing the sun, Vanilla does something internal. It reserves a transformation matrix, essentially a coordinate system for drawing the objects around the player and not in some random place. After drawing the moon, it releases that matrix. This is the engine internal bookkeeping, it's just how the renderer is built. The mixin has to land precisely inside that moment. It takes the matrix that Vanilla preserved, draws everything of its own in a separate one, and then puts back a dummy matrix, so that when Vanilla releases its matrix, the render stays balanced and doesn't crash the game. To the game engine, it looks like nothing happened. But there is a price to it. A mixin works because it knows the bytecode. Not just, here is a render sky method, but here is a specific instruction inside that method at this position in this version of the game. This isn't an agreement with Minecraft, it's just knowledge of its internal structure that modding never promised to preserve. An update ships and the bytecode might change, method renamed, instructions shifted, order of operation is different. Imagine you've been giving instructions to the printer for years that look like, when you reach the chapter about the code I need, find this exact paragraph and insert my text after it. And then the new edition of the book comes out. The text is almost the same, everything you needed is still there, but the author changed the label of the chapter that you needed. Your instructions still point to the old location, the printer follows them, but instead of inserting your text where you need it cannot even find the place where you need, because the chapter label was changed, and now your mixin, which is pointed to a certain chapter by its label, cannot even find it. In this case, the book cannot be printed because there is an error in the instructions. That's why updating a mixin heavy mode isn't just as easy as porting code, it's closer to rewriting it. Every entry point has to be found, verified and adjusted again. You can update, but every version update is a small project in itself, which is why some mods that go deep enough simply choose to not update. So you get access to everything, but in exchange for fragility that you can't control. I think that's exactly why Mixins describe modding so well. You take a system that you can't change, you don't own, and that was never designed for what you want to do. And instead of waiting for permission, you find another way in, through the printing house before the book is printed. Elysium works exactly like that, Galaxia works exactly like that, and thousands of other mods, even Neoforge, are working the same way. Minecraft is a closed book, but Java is an open printing house. Thanks for watching, bye.